It's time for the drive with Q on Sports Radio 102.9 FM The Game. Now, here's Q.
Good afternoon, everyone. 4 o'clock straight up on the East Coast. It is indeed a Wednesday edition of the Drive with Q. I'm your host, as always, Rich Quinones, coming at you live inside the friendly confines of the Sports Radio 102.9 FM The Game studios. Angel Martinez behind the glass producing the show, keeping us on the air. 2 hours to play with on the 2nd of October. We'll take you up to 6 o'clock. Straight up, as always, we are powered from our good friends at Zen Auto Concepts, the number one detailing shop in all of Florida. And of course, Play It Again Sports Busy Show, 2 hours, a lot of NFL. We'll get into baseball. We'll also do our power rankings, the top 10 from our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee as well. You'll see the show notes and the promo code in the link below. And I know it's kind of a little mixed bag of potpourri on this Wednesday, right? Because you've got Major League Baseball postseason. Last night was a great way to start the postseason. The Tigers, and all the road teams, think about this, right? Except for obviously the Atlanta Braves that got blanked by the Padres 4-0. The Tigers get to win. Casey gets to win. The Mets get to win. They double up the Brewers. The Mets are red hot. They had that dramatic win on the road against the Braves to punch their ticket. The Phillies just kind of sitting back at this point. Right now, bottom 5, Tigers and the Astros are scoreless. You've got KC and Baltimore. How bad would it be for Baltimore if they lose that series to KC? The Mets and the Brewers. Right now, it looks like I believe that Montas is going to go for Milwaukee tonight. And then you've got Musgrave and Fried, respectively, for the Pods and the Braves. So Steve Gardner is going to join us about 4:30, because I definitely, listen, we weren't on the air on Tuesday. The big sports story, obviously, Davante Adams, in the NFL world is taking center stage, but the passing of Pete Rose, and that's something I really want to get into today. And I think he's, Pete Rose is a very, was a very, his own worst enemy. If you really think about it, he was his own worst enemy. He was certainly a lightning rod when it came to the gambling element outside of the field, outside the ranks of MLB. We know about the gambling addiction. We know that it derailed his candidacy, his route to Cooperstown. And I've got so many thoughts and ideas and kind of just theories on if or when or how they're going to put Pete Rose into the Hall of Fame. If he makes it in that day might come. Everyone, and I've said this for years, I maintain this thought for years, and Steve Gardner can attest to this. I always believe Pete Rose was going to get in the Hall of Fame when he leaves this earth. But, with that being said, I just also think it's hollow, moot, and disgraceful, to be quite honest, by Major League Baseball. So that's something that I definitely want to get in to that conversation with you guys today as well, because it's a very, when you think about it, it's a very, how do I put this? His legacy, right? His legacy. We know what he meant to the game of baseball. But the problem is it was sabotage because of the fact that he was a gambler. And the funny thing is now, when you look around baseball, every time you turn around, what's baseball being sponsored by? Some type of freaking gambling act. So the hypocrisy is there. So plenty of baseball today, plenty of baseball today. As always, get in on the conversation, 727-858-6650. And then obviously in the NFL, everyone's waiting to see if the other shoe's going to drop with Davante Adams. Here we go. Listen, calm down, man. Calm down. I know that this is a good NFL topic to get into, but let's not act like this guy's the second coming of friggin' Jerry Rice. That's number one. Okay. The second thing is, it's pretty evident and clear his time with the Raiders is done. If you listen to Antonio Pierce talk about all the players on his team, all the players on his roster, and he's mentioning them by their name. And then he gets to Adams and he mentions him by his number. right? Liking a post on IG, not really mentioning his name. I mean, the rumors are swirling. We get it. Fine. If the Jets go and make a move for Davante Adams, am I going to put the Jets in the Super Bowl? No, I'm still not. But it's going to be very interesting to see what teams court Adams and what they want to part with, right? When you start to talk about what's he worth, right? And trust me, man, teams need wide receivers. Teams need quarterbacks. I mean, listen, we're going to get to what's going on in Florida, not only with the Miami Dolphins, but Jacksonville. So everyone is, Davante Adams. Is it Washington? Is it going to be the Jets? Man, your guess is as good as mine. Look, he's a talented wide receiver. Again, no one is doubting that. And obviously, nothing is imminent, but it's a situation to watch. He wants to get traded. He wants out of Vegas. Okay. So you got two landing spots, right? One apparently is the Jets. Obviously, his connection and relationship with Aaron Rodgers. Can the 49ers get in on these sweepstakes? Could the Steelers? Could Washington? Could the Cowboys? The Cowboys always seem to just kind of come out of nowhere and make a splash, make a move. But I'm not going to sit here and say if Davante Adams is on the Jets, then they're winning the AFC East. They're going to the AFC Championship. They're going to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. And all of a sudden, Aaron Rodgers is going to turn back the clock and look like he's 25. Just calm it down. Just calm it down with that for a second. He's a good ball player, but there's other pressing needs going on here. And then you have what's going on in Miami. And, listen, if the Miami Dolphins heading into the season, we all knew that Tua is prone to getting banged up. We all know that Tua is prone to concussions. This is nothing new. So before we get into, why did they sign him? Why? Well, guess what? I'm telling you why they did. Because look at the nonsense and the dreck they have in the backup position. So for everyone that was getting on me and everyone else saying there's no way you sign Tua to this monster deal, this massive deal, he's not a face of the franchise, he's going to get hurt. Look how bad this team is without him under center, number one. And also, it's pretty much malpractice by the Miami Dolphins, knowing that they know this kid has an injury history and yet never really addressing the backup spot. I'm sorry, Tyler Huntley, Tim Boyle, Skylar Thompson. Man, you could have went out, you could have inked Joe Flacco. You could have went out, you could have inked Andy Dalton. I mean, it is malpractice. And this season now has gotten so far away from the Miami Dolphins. They were not even competitive on Monday night's loss to Tennessee. They mustered 12 points. They mustered zero offense, basically. They got throttled 31 to 12. They didn't even show up. I mean, the quarterbacking play was a friggin' disgrace. Huntley was 14 to 22 for 96 yards. They couldn't run the football. Players are going down left and right. They just lost another pass rusher to the season. So is it malpractice on Miami and the GM and McDaniel not going out and signing a viable option as a backup, knowing all they needed to do was get through a couple weeks if Tua was going to get banged up? Yeah, it was. And that's on the Miami Dolphins and their brass. Absolutely. And then you go down to Jacksonville, and I'm telling you, Doug Peterson is gone. There's no bones about it, man. Dougie P, he's 1 foot out the door. He is 1 foot out the door. And the fact that you have all these reports now coming out and everyone's trying to push, right, this certain narrative, and the coach has to come out. The reports are saying he's lost the locker room. I have not lost the locker room. These reports are erroneous. Listen, he's gone. He's gone. He's absolutely gone. And I'm going to tell you why. Because when you come up with a loss in which they did, and you're taking personal jabs at your players, there's a difference between holding a player accountable and trying to lift them up and then taking jabs at them. That's not going to go well over in the locker room. And that, for me, pretty much sealed his fate. Now, he'll get another game or two, and that's it. Doug Peterson is not coaching out the string. He's just not. And blaming players, look, if they lose to the Colts and or the Bears, he might not get on the plane to come back to the States from London. He just might not. He is out. He's done. He's not going to last this. The act wore thin. Listen, and he keeps backing his guys when it comes to these coaches. And that's never going to work. It's just not. I mean, think about it. Who did he was so high on who? Press Taylor. Remember? All we heard was Press Taylor, Press Taylor, Press Taylor. When he was with the Eagles, he was a freaking quality control coach, which is nothing. But that's his guy. Doesn't pan out. All right, see ya. Right? It just doesn't pan out. Quarterback's coach doesn't work. Get out of here. And he was able to stay another year or so. But Doug kept backing guys that they were not comfortable with. And Doug was the one that left. He's doing the same thing in Jacksonville right now with Taylor as the offensive coordinator. He refuses to admit it was a mistake to jettison Taylor. Everyone sees it. Trevor Lawrence is regressing. Doug Peterson's not making it through the season. He's not. He's done. He's dead man walking. He's Sean Penn. He's dead man walking. He's done. So you got one coach in Miami that decides we're not going to address the quarterback situation. Okay? That's number one. And it's going to bite him in the ass big time. And that's McDaniel in Miami. Then you got the situation in Jacksonville where you've got the head coach who is now just taking shots at players. And that's not going to sit well in the locker room. So you got that mess going on with those Florida teams. Then you got the Adams situation, and we're getting to a point now in professional sports where these players, as soon as they get pissed off, one time, they don't get their reps, they don't get their snaps, they don't get their touches, they want out, right? Dealing with the hamstring injury, then all of a sudden he's with the Jets and he's fine. I mean, it's just, listen, you've got players now that he just does not want to be in that situation. And I can't blame him. I don't like the coaching staff. I don't think Pierce is a very good head coach. I don't like their roster. I don't like the quarterback. So yes, he realizes my prime, I'm right there. I got a couple, 3, 4, maybe good years left. I want to go play with a decent quarterback. Let me go play with Lamar Jackson. Let me go play with Brock Purdy. Let me get the hell out of here. Let me go get reunited with Aaron Rodgers. Hey, maybe I have an opportunity to go after, and don't discount this team, the Kansas City Chiefs, and playing with Patrick Mahomes, because the Chiefs have a substantial amount of injuries all over the place from their wide receiver spot. Guys are dropping left and right. Okay? But we're getting to this point now where we talk about the NBA being a players' league. Well, we're leaning towards that now with the NFL, because all the players they want to make demands. Demands. That's all they want to do. They want to make demands, where they're going, who they're playing with, how many reps they're going to get. And after a while, it's just like, enough is enough, man. Nobody wants to hear it anymore, right? After a while, it's just like, enough is enough. Play with the team that you were drafted by. Play with the team that you got signed. Play with the team you got traded to. Make the best of it. I get where he's coming from. I get it. I understand. He's frustrated, man. And most wide receivers and offensive players that don't get their touches and don't get their yards and don't get their stats and don't get in the end zone, they balk. Wilson's doing it with the Jets. Beckham did it for years with the Giants. Been there, done it. Been there, done it. But it doesn't necessarily mean that if Adams goes to the Jets, that they're going to the AFC Championship. Aaron Rodgers he's banged up, man. He's banged up. Who's to say Aaron Rodgers is going to last the season? I mean, hell, they scored 9 points against the Denver Broncos. 9 points. All right, they put up 27 against the Titans. All right, they put up 24 against a bad Patriot team. They got the Vikings coming up in London. Then they have the Bills, the Steelers. We're going to see where this Jet squad is. I told you, worst case scenario, they're 2-4. Everyone's going to be jumping off bridges. Rodgers is going to start talking about relax this, relax that, and you're going to start to see he's wearing down. So we got baseball on the docket. Pete Rose, I want to open up the conversation regarding Pete Rose. Absolutely, 727-858-6650. Hall of Fame, the legacy when it comes to Pete Rose. I have so many thoughts and takes and opinions on this. I want to share them with you as well on the other side. We're just cranking it up on a Wednesday edition of the Drive with Q. 15 past 4 o'clock hour. Keep it locked in. Sports Radio 102.9 FM. The Game powered by our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. We'll do our top 10 Q's power rankings around 525-ish. Check out the link in our YouTube live show notes as well. And you can save 20% off your first purchase. Of course, BYP20. Don't forget to download the SR 1029 The Game app. And you can always give us a call or text 727-858-6650 and follow me on all social media platforms, X and IG at Rich Q on Q. So again, a lot of stuff to dive into. We're going to open it up as well on the other side. Adams, the disgruntled players. Here we go. The trade, where you think would be the best fit. It doesn't necessarily guarantee that any team is going to win going forward with Adams. Talented wide receiver, but man, we're seeing across the league, Reddick losing millions. Guys holding out. You sign these friggin' contracts. Play them out. Play them out. Play them out. Play the hand you've been dealt. I get the frustration, but hell, man, back in the day, some of these guys, I mean, we know this. They played it out. They played the hand that was dealt. The NBA is now becoming the NFL. The NFL is now becoming the NBA. It's just going to be a players-driven league. You got coaches on the hot seat. Dougie P, I believe he's going to be out in a couple of weeks with a couple more losses. McDaniel in Miami should be on the hot seat because they didn't get a viable option in the backup position. And then Pete Rose. What are your thoughts on Pete Rose? You know, the Hall of Fame, the legacy, the numbers, the stats, Charlie Hustle, career hits leaders. But again, you have to bring in the sports betting and the gambling into the conversation. And we're going to dive into that as well. 20 past 4 o'clock hour. Keep locked in. Just crank it up on a Wednesday inside the friendly confines of the SR 1029 FM. The Game, Southwest Florida's newest game in town studios.
Ion Tampa Bay is the latest news, weather, and traffic for Pinellas, Pasco, Ellsboro, Hernando, and surrounding communities. Stay connected on X, Facebook, and their website, iontp.com. Ion Tampa Bay keeps you informed on breaking news as it happens. Southwest Florida's newest game in town. Sports Radio 102.9, The Game powered by Ion Tampa Bay. We'll be right back.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting. A teenager. Learning the lingo.
Today I'm going to help parents translate teen slang. Now, when a teen says something is on fleek, it's exactly like saying, that's rad. It simply means that something is awesome or cool. Another one is totes. It's exactly like saying, totally, just shorter. As in, I totes love going to the mall with Becca. Another word you might hear is jelly. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will think you're, rad just the same. To learn more, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
This is the story of a very special woman. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician or an entrepreneur. Her knowledge was limitless and still is. She could also make monsters disappear, especially those that lurked in the shadows under the bed. Once, this woman put back together a teenage girl's broken heart, which had been shattered in 1,000 pieces, just by giving her a bear hug. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Call or text the show at 727-858-6650. Now, back to Q.
All right, 421 on a Wednesday edition of The Drive with Q. Rich Quinones here. Angel Martinez behind the glass. We'll take you up to 6. We will open it up as we typically do, 727-858-6650. Get in on the Davante Adams conversation right now. Plus, I believe that Doug P is on his way out in Jacksonville. Let me hear what you guys have to say. And I know, look, we'll look at it when we talk about these players right now in the NFL. And I know there's a lot of money to be made. And we know the NFL is billions and billions of dollars, right? But I feel as though every other week there's a disgruntled player. I really do. It's just, I think maybe it's because of social media and what's going on. I mean, hell, I didn't even get into, which I want to. You know, you talk about what's going on social. I mean, how does it not bother an Eagles fan? I mean, this is absurd that you've got one of your captains and Darius Slay doing a friggin' podcast with the Cowboys, Micah Parsons, and friggin' laughing it up because CJ Gardner Johnson was getting cooked. I mean, if I am an Eagles fan, I am absolutely pissed off. I don't need that stuff. That's not funny to me. We're sleeping with the enemy here. You saw the Mets and the Braves the other day shake hands because they both got into the postseason. What the hell's going on? What is going on? We're not congratulating each other. You're not going on the enemy's podcast. And then you're basically blasting a player. You're joking you're being like a giddy schoolgirl. That's embarrassing. That's a horrible look. And Darius Slay, I mean, this guy's turned into a friggin' clown. He really is. I would be pissed. I would be pissed off that you got your captain. You got your captain, one of your captains, basically laughing it up regarding one of his teammates. That's a horrible look. Right? Laughing because one of his teammates got cooked. I mean, that's horrible. That tells me that there is this, again, ridiculous disconnect going on between the head coach, the players in the locker room, and everything else. There's no friggin' way, man. Can you imagine guys back in the day doing that kind of stuff? Nah, not happening. Not happening, man. That is just so piss poor. It's laughable. It really is. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. And then you're going to sit there and try to take the high road, or you're going to sit there and say, yeah, you can come at me when I mess up, and then you're going to block people. I mean, if I'm an Eagles fan, I would be pissed off one of my captains was laughing about teammates getting cooked on another player's pod, on a rival, okay? On a rival's podcast, mind you. Mind you. Think about that for a moment. Absorb that for a second. It's not like, it's going on Jason Kelsey, or him and Jalen Hurts doing something, or him and even Gardner Johnson doing something on a rival's podcast, on Micah Parsons' podcast. That's more friggin' blowing smoke out of his ass than actually being a great player on the field. But that's another story. Embarrassing. 727-858-6650. See what you guys have to say. Steve Gardner, about 6 minutes on Pete Rose and the baseball. Vince chiming in Q, sounding like the old man, screaming, get off my lawn. It's 2024. This is the new player. Adapt or die. No way. I'm not adapting. Absolutely not. What's going on, Joey V? I'm not adapting to that kind of nonsense. I'm not. Sleeping like a baby under my leg. I'm not adapting to that kind of stuff. You're signing contracts, man. Like, whatever happened to honor the contract? Whatever happened to honor the I get it. You're pissed off because, first of all, you were cooking your quarterback from last year. Let's not forget. But nobody wants to talk about that when it comes to Davante Adams. Nope. We don't want to get into the comments that he was cooking guys last year. And not for the not for the not being positive. Did he not crush his quarterback last year? Yeah, he did. All right, he's got familiarity. He played with Aaron Rodgers all those years in the Green Bay Packers. He put up monster numbers. Now you're with the Raiders, man. And you got traded. Deal with it. And then you wind up signing a 5-year, $141 million deal. Stop. You also were reunited with who? Your buddy and your college teammate and Derek Carr. But yet, you still wanted to have comments. You still wanted to kind of cook them, right? Gas pump guy, I think it's funny that I don't know who was on the defense, but they said that they were going to put belt to ass against the Buccaneers, and then we ended up coming out and whooping their ass, talking about Tampa Bay. Yeah. I mean, if the Eagles players, I think Gardner Johnson had a couple, they just need to shut up. They're such an unlikable team. Like, if you're talking and you can back it up, you can back it up. If you're backing up, yap. Just yap. But everyone's just, they talk way too much, man. Just play. Just play, just play, just play. Nobody wants to hear the nonsense anymore. And if you get traded and you sign a friggin' monster contract, honor the friggin' contract. It's not good when the head coach is basically coming out and not even addressing you by your name. That pretty much tells you that your fate is already sealed, right? Joe in Orlando chiming in. Q, good Jacksonville Jags talk. I agree with you. I think Doug P is definitely a dead man walking. Do you think they give him the benefit of the doubt with the 2 games in London? I don't. I think he sealed his fate after he made the comments and he called out the players. And quite frankly, there was supposed to be this whole, hey, Doug's going to Jacksonville. It makes sense. He can work with Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence has regressed. Trevor Lawrence has how many touchdowns this year? I think he has 4, and he's got 1 pick in 4 games. I mean, he's missing wide open guys. He's not seeing the field. It's just not good, right? It's just not good. John chimes in. Q, want to get your thoughts sometime before you get out the air on the offense and Kellen Moore. And also, you talked a little bit about the missed tackling from the Eagles the other day. You have any stats on that? I do, and I'll get into that in the 5 o'clock hour. Yeah, I mean, listen, we'll get into the Eagles in the 5 o'clock hour. We'll get into a lot of NFL. I'm not sure yet if Lloyd Vance is going to jump on. But again, I want to get into some baseball talk at 4:30. I love that we can kind of go around and pinpoint and hit on different things, but I definitely want to hit on baseball. I know we'll call up Steve Gardner in a moment. Hall of Fame voter, by the way. Hall of Fame baseball voter, and does a great job with USA Today. So we'll take a timeout. We'll call him up on the other side. 30 past the 4 o'clock hour. We'll take you up to 6 o'clock. Good comments coming in on X. Good comments coming in on Facebook. We will read them out. And as always, you guys, text in, call in 727-858-6650. We will take you up to 6 o'clock straight up on a Wednesday edition of The Drive with Q. Rich Quinones here. Angel Martinez behind the glass, producing the show, keeping us on the air. Appreciate everyone checking us out on the X platform as well. And you guys are fantastic. So a little baseball talk, a little postseason baseball talk. I'll also give you some updated World Series odds, and then we'll do a deep dive on the career of Pete Rose. And really, ultimately, does he get in the Hall of Fame now that he has passed on? So we'll dive into that with Steve Gardner coming up on the other side.
Ion Tampa Bay is the latest news, weather, and traffic for Pinellas, Pasco, Ellsboro, Hernando, and surrounding communities. Stay connected on X, Facebook, and their website, iontb.com. Ion Tampa Bay keeps you informed on breaking news as it happens. Southwest Florida's newest game in town. Sports Radio 102.9, the game powered by Ion Tampa Bay. We'll be right back.
Hey, Dad, your prescription will be ready in just a minute. Hey, Dad, your laundry will be ready in just a minute. Dad, your lunch will be ready in just a minute.
Hey, honey, why don't you take a minute?
When you help care for a loved one, you give them as much time as you can, making sure they're safe and comfortable. But it's just as important that you take some time for yourself.
At AARP, we can help with information and useful tips on how you can maintain a healthy life balance, care for your own physical and mental well-being, and manage the challenges of caring for a loved one. Because the better care you take of yourself, the better care you can provide for your loved one.
Thanks, Dad.
Thank you. You're there for them. We're here for you. Find free care guides to support you and your loved one at aarp.org/caregiving. That's aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Don't forget to get social with us. Follow Q at RichQ on Q. And now, back to Q.
All right, 4:31 on a busy Wednesday edition of The Drive with Q. As I told you, we want to kind of turn our attention, what's going on in the world of baseball. The MLB playoffs are cooking as we speak, and we'll see if we can punch him up. Just got to check my screen. I still see a black screen, but that's okay. We'll see if we can punch up Steve.
Steve's on the line.
Steve Gardner, USA Today baseball writer. Steve, are you there, my friend?
Yes, indeed, Rich. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. Appreciate a couple moments. I know you are driving, but are you covering any games as we speak? I know you're on the road, but a lot of baseball stuff is going on right now.
Yeah, not today. I'm en route, but yes, there is plenty of baseball today, and it's that great time of year that we all love as we're baseball fans.
Yeah, absolutely. 4:32. Steve Gardner is kind enough to join us. Angel, do me a favor, just check the chats, please. A lot of baseball to get into. So, Major League Baseball postseason, we're in it. Here we go, and I want to get your thoughts on a couple things. So I thought going into the playoffs that, one of the most dangerous teams, if they get in, would be the New York Mets. And they had that dramatic win against the Atlanta Braves. They turn around, and then they had the big win last night. So boom, already putting some pressure on the Brewers. I think it's a tough series for the Brewers. I mean, the Mets, to me, they're starting to kind of resemble that 2015 vibe. I mean, listen, what we know Lindor was to turn around, but if they were to get through Milwaukee, how far do you think the squad can go?
I think it's going to be tough to get past Milwaukee, first of all, and beyond that, I think the Dodgers, I think the Padres are superb. I think the Phillies are great. So yeah, it's definitely a tall order for the Mets. I have them, maybe the fourth or fifth best team in the National League. And the magic is there. You can't discount that, because in the postseason, all you have to do, just go 1-0 each day, as Dave Martinez made famous when the Nationals won the World Series.
Yeah, the road teams fared very well last night. Obviously, the Padres get the win 4-0 over the Braves. So you had 3 out of 4 on the road. The Mets doubling up the Brewers. The Royals beating your O's 1-0. And then the Tigers, who are early on in action as we speak, up 1-0 over the Astros. And we talked about the Astros, right? This is a team that they get in. Okay, boy, here you go. You don't want to see them. Now, all of a sudden, the bats have kind of taken a worse spot to go cold.
I'm telling you, the runs are hard to come by in the American League, aren't they? But yeah, that's the other thing too. You get into the playoffs and you run into a hot pitcher or a hot pitching staff, as the Tigers are showing so far in the first 2 games of this series. You can be gone in a hurry, and that's where I think the Astros need to start finding that offense somewhere, or else it's going to be current, and losing at home is like the ultimate disrespect.
Yeah, and it puts a substantial amount of strain and pressure, right? Because this, you start to tighten up a little bit. Kansas City, we talked about them. Here's a team that won 86 games. They were decent on the road. Baltimore won 91. I mean, this proves once again, right? Sometimes you don't want to get a team that's playoff tested, or a veteran team, or a team that's coming in hot, especially in a short series.
Yep. Short series again. Any team can win. And the Royals, I mean, they have had their ups and downs during the course of the regular season, as have the Orioles. And so, yes, I can't believe that Baltimore has lost, 9 consecutive playoff games going back to the sweep by the Royals in the ALCS in 2014, something like that, the last time they were there.
Yeah, that's a bad stretch, man. I mean, listen, if the Astros lose and the O's lose, then if the Yankees can't get to the World Series and win the pennant, that's an indictment on the Yankees, because I think those are the two teams that are their biggest threats.
I do too. But we can't overlook the Guardians, and a team that has kind of if a division winner can fly under the radar, it seems like they have, and you can't really say what their super strong point is when you look up and down. Maybe the bullpen is probably their best asset, which is very helpful in the postseason. But if you try and match up and do check boxes on offense and defense and pitching and all of that, it's hard to say that the Guardians have an advantage in many categories at all if they match up against the Yankees or if they match up against any other team, really. So I'm impressed with what Stephen Vogt has done in his first year there as the manager, and we can't overlook them anymore. They're going to be a force as the number 2 seed.
Yankees, Dodgers, Phillies all have pretty much a shortest odds, plus 320, plus 330, Phillies at plus 370 respectively. Then, as you mentioned, the Guardians plus 1,100, the Mets 1,700, Milwaukee plus 4,500, Kansas City plus 21. It basically is telling you what the odds makers are, who they believe are the 3 strongest teams. Then the Padres kind of sneak in plus 800. I do want to get your thoughts on a couple things around baseball, and then obviously we'll get into Pete Rose. What the hell is going on down there in Miami with the Marlins? I mean, it sounds like it's just like a fire sale of employees all over the place. I mean, it's like a bloodbath.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, it's weird because when Kimming was the general manager there, it seemed like this was a team on the rise. They had Skip Schumacher was an up-and-coming manager that everybody thought was, going to take the Marlins to new heights. And all of a sudden, ownership decides we're going to go in a different direction. And, I didn't know you could get any further south than Miami. But that's exactly what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, they've got issues, man. They couldn't hit. Listen. The fact that they were able to close out the season and have a couple wins is nice, but they lost 100 games. It's, par from the course. They've got a couple players they can kind of build around, right? They got the third baseman. Sanchez is a nice player out in right field. They got, La Cruz, Brian De La Cruz. They've got some pieces, but man, they don't draw in that ballpark. They don't sell out. They're having issues with the TV rights and the broadcasting rights. And it's unfortunate, man, but it is baseball, right? I mean, do you think, I mentioned this the other day, I think it's a sad day that Oakland has to kind of pick up and fold shop, because the Athletics are a great baseball franchise. And obviously they haven't been a very good team for a while, but in the heyday, when you go in the 70s and Jackson and Catfish and Vida and tennis, and then you talk about the Smash Brothers, the Bash Brothers and everything. I mean, they're fanatical fans, man. And I just think it's embarrassing and it's a disgrace that they got to pick up and play in a minor league park right now. Right. I mean, it's just, you as a baseball guy, as a Hall of Fame voter, as a baseball purist, you sit there and say, wow, man, this is tough to watch for that fan base.
It sure is. And it's a tragedy because, you talked about those legendary A's players from years past, glory days past, but you look at some of the players who are starring in the majors right now who were former members of the A's, Marcus Semien, Matt Chapman. There are tons of them where the management there in Oakland decided not to re-sign them, not to do anything with a team that was a playoff team. You know, it hasn't been that long since the A's made the playoffs. And to just let that team rot and not even replenish the talent that was, you know, or re-sign the talent that was there, that the fans had come to love and, you know, had developed a bond. You know, Marcus Semien, in fact, you know, he was like one of the more emotional players when the Coliseum was closing down because of all the good memories that he had there. So, yeah, it's a terrible shame. And the fact that, as you mentioned, they're going to play in a minor league park for 3 more seasons. And then a park somehow is going to get built with plans that are not even on paper at this point in Las Vegas. I don't know. I think this has the potential to go really, really badly, really, really quickly.
Steve Gardner, kind enough to join us, great baseball writer, USA Today, voter as well when it comes to the Baseball Hall of Fame. All right, the passing of Pete Rose. I mean, look, a lightning rod, you know, again, passed away Monday, age of 83. We know about the records, 24 years played, most games played, plate appearances, at bat, 17 times an All-Star, National League MVP, Rookie of the Year, World Series, right? The Big Red Machine, the Phillies in 80, and obviously Charlie Hustle. And oh, by the way, 42-56. Now, you and I have talked about Pete Rose and the eligibilities, right? The candidacy for the Hall of Fame. And I know for a long time, I've gone back and forth with you from my days on 1290 The Ticket in Delaware, right? We're talking 15 plus years where I would scream at the mountaintop and say, no, 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 he broke the cardinal sin. Here we go. Here we go. Now, as you know, I've softened my stance on that. And for the listening audience who's listening in for the first time regarding Steve and I debate or talk about Pete Rose, I've always maintained he will get in when he leaves this earth. And now that he's passed on, let me ask you this to start. If you just look at all his achievements on the field, you would say, obviously, no brainer, stick him in Cooperstown, correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely,
Okay.
no question.
Okay. Do you believe, obviously, with the gambling and everything that transpired, look, it's fair to say he disgraced the game. So the argument was he doesn't belong in the hall. His accomplishments do. And what I'm wrestling with is I still maintain if he turned around and actually was just contrite and transparent, you know, he just for 15 plus years kept saying no, 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 no. And then finally turned around. Well, I did bet, but as a manager with the 8, I believe the punishment fit the crime. He would have got reinstated and that would have been it. But because he just constantly kept saying, I didn't do it, I didn't do it, I didn't do it. And then obviously Bart Giamatti passes on. We know about the new leadership. And of course, the commissioners in baseball, they were not going to give him a second look. Do you believe if he was more contrite early on, then he would have been in by now?
I think that's a distinct possibility. And I know that, you know, there is a way to apply for reinstatement. And Pete Rose did that multiple times, and each time he was denied. While he was doing that, however, he was still in public saying that he did not gamble on baseball.
Correct.
And maintained that for, what was it, like 15 years before finally coming clean officially. So, yes, I think his not showing contrition right off the bat was the, you know, what doomed him. And he recognized that himself. I mean, in interviews later on, he said, you know, I just said and denied it that first time, and then I felt like I couldn't back down from what I said initially. And he kept that up for, you know, until I think he felt like it was fruitless because he wasn't going to get anywhere denying it. And he kind of saw the light to say, okay, if I'm ever going to get in the Hall of Fame, then I have to admit it and apologize for it and acknowledge it. And it was still hard for him to do that. in the way that baseball wanted, and I think the public demanded. And I think that's where we ended up with him just being in like baseball purgatory because he wasn't going to ever get in at that point.
So, but now we have what? Look, his passing, his death basically now creates an opportunity for rough justice. I honestly believe that. Like, if he gets in now, it's a shame. It's more of a disgrace and shameful by baseball. He paid his debt, should have come cleaner earlier. So now, what does baseball do? Do you basically have to just kowtow and bend over for the masses right now? Like, okay, would you vote right now? Would you vote Pete Rose into the Hall of Fame?
No, I would not.
Really?
And, because Shoeless Joe Jackson is on the ineligible list, and there have been many, many people who have come to his defense, but yet he's on the ineligible list. He can't be voted in, and if the Hall of Fame, allows somebody to be on the ballot, reinstates them, then I can make up my mind then. I still don't think, even if they were to somehow take that ineligible, permanently ineligible, and allow him to be voted. That's kind of a hypothetical, though. It's never going to come to the baseball writers to do that. It's going to be an eras committee that would be able to do that. So, but still, I feel like the way that the baseball rules are, he still broke those rules. He can still be in the Hall of Fame as an exhibit. There could be memorabilia from him, but to get a plaque with all of those other Hall of Famers, no, I don't think he belongs.
Wow. Hey, listen, I respect the hell out of you. And I'm actually shocked you were as adamant and you said no. And I'm going to tell you why, because if we start to bleed into the steroid era and those guys start to slowly get in, I understand it says no gambling. I get it. I totally get it. But didn't the guy pay enough? I mean, it's the Hall of Fame. It's not the Hall of Character.
But what did he pay? That's the question.
He was an outcast. He was an outcast.
That's what
Nobody wanted to touch this guy. Look, he was a gambler. He had an addiction. I remember I interviewed him. I was like, I get 10 minutes with Pete Rose. He was pushing product. I was pissed off. I was like, this is, oh my God, I can't. But haven't you and I had the discussion before, if you can't tell the history of the game without the person, then how can you tell it?
Yep. I still feel like that you could have a Pete Rose exhibit. He is in the Hall of Fame. There are, exhibits, jerseys, and all of that sort of stuff that goes into the Hall of Fame that has Pete Rose's name on it. And it's very difficult to tell the story of baseball. But yet there is the museum part of the Hall of Fame, and then there is the plaque room, where the inducted are. And I think it's okay to keep those separate.
I feel as though when they go through, say, his family, they start digging through and there's old... My biggest fear, and again, I'm doing a 180 on this. I had to soften my stance because I wanted to look at it pragmatically after 15 plus years of just screaming into the microphone. My fear is that, you get 15 plus years of denial, right? And then finally, hey man, I did place bets on baseball, but it was only as a manager. Now I'm starting to think to myself, man, can you imagine if something's proven or comes to light where all of a sudden he bet on games while he was a player? And I know I'm not speaking ill of the dead. I'm not, but I'm sure this conversation will come up. I mean, that just... And the only reason I bring everything up now is because you can't turn on a baseball game without what? Seeing what odds are brought to you by BetMGM, FanDuel, DraftKings. It's like, so the hypocrisy, it's almost absurd.
Well, but here's the thing, though. We had players, minor leaguers and a former major leaguer at the beginning of this season get suspended because they bet on baseball games. So MLB is still holding firm to that. The investigation into Shohei Ohtani's interpreter.
Yep.
He is essentially banned from baseball. So it's not like Major League Baseball is relaxing its standards that it holds the players to, or front office people, or employees. That's still the same. But you are right that it does seem a little bit having it both ways when baseball is taking in all of this money because of its affiliation with gambling companies, but yet still wants to try and maintain and have the high road when it comes to the integrity of the game.
Joey B chiming in, Cooperstown is empty without Pete Rose. He belongs in with his on-the-field play. Baseball has embraced fantasy, online betting, etc. Rose deserves to be in, period. I'm wondering, that's a good comment. I'm wondering if we learn 5 years from now that Shohei Ohtani was signing off on bets and knew exactly what was going on. Then, can't put him in, can we?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. He will have violated the same rule that Pete Rose did.
Do you believe there will be writers that have sentiment though now when they look at Pete Rose? Like, man, kind of feel bad for the guy. Let's kind of, walk back and, again, think about everything he meant for the game and the numbers and the stats and the longevity and the Charlie hustle and this, that, the other thing. Or you think it's going to be across the board, kind of the staunch, hey man, if the name ever comes up, I'm not voting for this guy.
Oh, no. I think there are a majority of baseball writers that are pro Pete Rose. I think because having covered him or covered, as a player, as a manager, or talked to people that have played with him or interviewed Pete Rose himself, I think there are a lot of players that are on Pete Rose's side and have been on Pete Rose's side for a long time. But the fact that, the Hall of Fame, certainly, Joe Morgan, Henry Aaron, I think even advocated for him to be able to get into the Hall or get reinstated. So there were a lot of players that he played with that loved him, or even against him, which, you may find hard to believe, but they respected his work ethic and all of that, who are very, very pro Pete Rose. But the fact that, you've got to have the standards, and Major League Baseball and the various commissioners have not budged one bit about that, because that, as you mentioned, that's the cardinal rule in baseball.
Yeah, it's a shame, man. You know why? Because when you're playing T-ball and Little League as a kid, what your dad used to say, come on, man, hustle, right? I mean, Charlie, hustle, that's right. I mean, that's baseball, right? The head first, knocking over Fosse in the All-Star game, playing the game. It's a shame that if he led his life the way he played the game, right? I mean, think about this. It's just it would be a different story. Angel, I want to pull up that comment real quick. Tim just chimed in. See if we can pull up that comment. That's a pretty good comment. 727-858-6650. Tim chimes in. I will not visit the Hall of Fame for baseball because they refused to put Pete Rose in. Giamatti was an ass. Wow. All-time hits leader not in is ridiculous. I think Giamatti had the personal vendetta. I think I think the fact, again, I think it was when Pete Rose or Giamatti went on Dateline and then Pete Rose was interviewed. It's just every time he kept saying no. I just think that was the downfall. It's just, and then what happens, right? Giamatti dies. Giamatti died, I think, what was it, in 1989? I think he was only 50-something, 51 years old. And, hey, you're never going to reinstate this guy. That's my legacy. I'm never going to reinstate him. Don't ever reinstate him again.
Yeah. And, here's the interesting thing, if we like to play a little what if.
Yeah.
What if Pete Rose, when he was player manager, when he was done playing, retired for 5 years and didn't manage, and then, he was eligible for the Hall of Fame, he would certainly be a first ballot inductee. If he had come to manage after that 5-year period, we wouldn't be having all of this discussion. because he'd already be in. You know, it's just the fact that he couldn't
Yeah.
After he stopped playing, he continued to manage, and that's where all of this ended up bubbling up and surfacing.
Yeah, and I don't want to sound like he had a personal grind, because I remember, I think Giamatti suspended him for something games for shoving a ref, right? Because that's when he suspended Jay Howe. He was using the pine tar. But the thing with Giamatti, man, it was like to his deathbed. There's no way you're ever. So I'll ask you this in closing. You've stated that you will not vote for Pete Rose. Do you believe Pete Rose will eventually get in the Hall of Fame? Not as an exhibit, but as we look at the Mantles, the Roof, the Maggios. Yeah.
Yeah, the Shoeless Joe Jackson example, I think is the best
analogy,
shall we say, for what's going to happen to Pete Rose. All of the stuff that's come out since then still hasn't reversed any sentiment for Shoeless Joe Jackson to get into the Hall of Fame, even though he was a Hall of Fame player. I think that's what's going to happen to Pete Rose.
Man, I'll tell you. I mean, it's just sometimes life is all about decisions and being held accountable. And I went back and I watched those old clips, and you almost like you're trying to will him at the time, even though you already know the outcome, to just fess up and take the medicine. And I think that still rubbed people the wrong way for a long time. And then who knows? I was reading today that the Royals were close to signing him. I mean, look, he was a gambler. He was an addict. He had an addiction. I'm not going to sit there and say if he played for Kansas City, who knows if it would have been different, but we don't know. It's just, it was his personality. It was who he is. I mean, hell, Art Schlichter was in jail putting in bets in a cell phone, right? I mean, so these guys, when they're addicted, man. But do you think, and lastly, Stephen, I appreciate the extended time. When we look back and they talk about Pete Rose's legacy, right? Do you think it's always going to be like, oh man, Charlie Hustle, or, oh man, yeah, Charlie Hustle. Yeah, but he got pinched for gambling. He's never getting in the Hall.
I think eventually, right now, the gambling thing is still was the first line of most of his obituaries. I think as time goes on, we're going to remember the impact that Pete Rose had on the game of baseball as the hit king, as Charlie Hustle, as a World Series champion. I think that's going to be what we remember most about Pete Rose when you look back at baseball history. I think it's going to be maybe not a footnote, the gambling, but I think his greatest impact on the game was as a player and as a winner. And that's what I think we should focus on, obviously, now that he's no longer with us.
Fantastic stuff. By the way, top of the eighth, Tigers and Astros knotted up at 2. Kansas City's up first. They struck first, 1-0 over the O's. You can follow Steve on X at Steve A. Gardner, baseball writer, reporter, senior fantasy editor, USA Today, and again, BBWAA, Hall of Fame vote. Great stuff, my friend. I greatly appreciate the extended time. I always love the baseball talk and the debate and the pushback, you pushing back and me pushing back. And listen, he will be a lightning rod for, that topic of conversation, when we start to talk about guys and eligible on the ballot, and who knows how it's going to play out. And you might be right. He might get in one day, but it might be with that asterisk in the wing, as you alluded to. But greatly appreciate it, my friend. Fantastic stuff. Hope to get you on next week and continue a little postseason talk.
That'd be great, Rich. Always a fantastic time talking with you.
All right. Thank you so much. That was great stuff. That was really great stuff. I am shocked. That's unequivocally no.
Yeah.
Listen, everyone's got their thoughts, opinions, and their takes on it. And I value Steve's baseball opinion and his take. All right, 727-858-6650. 5 o'clock straight up. Got to remind everyone, this is Sports Radio 1029 FM, The Game, Coastal Sports Network. We got 60 in a book, 60 to play with. We'll take a quick timeout. We'll come back. We'll reset the table. Your comments as well. Want to mix in a little football talk, give you some updates on Adams and what's going on in Jacksonville, Miami, some Philadelphia Eagles news, NFC East news as well. You got Thursday Night Football. We will run through the gamut as well on the other side. Keep it locked in to a Wednesday edition of The Drive with Q right here.
Ion Tampa Bay is the latest news, weather, and traffic for Pinellas, Pasco, Ellsboro, Hernando, and surrounding communities. Stay connected on X, Facebook, and their website, iontb.com. Ion Tampa Bay keeps you informed on breaking news as it happens. Southwest Florida's newest game in town. Sports Radio 102.9, the game powered by Ion Tampa Bay. We'll be right back.
To some people, the sound of a baby babbling doesn't mean much. But that's not necessarily true. By 6 months, they're combining vowels and consonants. By 9 months, they're trying out different kinds of sounds. And by 12 months, their babbling is beginning to take on some meaning. Especially if there's no babbling at all. Little to no babbling by 12 months or later is just one of the possible signs of autism in children. Early screening and intervention can make a lifetime of difference and unlock a world of possibilities. Take the first step at autismspeaks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
The following is made possible by Dad.
Why was the basketball court all wet? Because the players kept dribbling all over it.
The dad joke. Corny, grown-worthy, but also one of the simplest ways to share a moment with your kids.
Why do you have to be careful when it's raining cats and dogs? Because you might step in a poodle.
And kids that spend more time with their dads grow up to be smarter, more successful.
Can I tell you a cat joke? Just kidding.
And, with any luck, funnier adults.
Why didn't the skeleton go to the dance? Because he didn't have anybody to go with.
Dad jokes rule. So take a moment to make a moment and give your kid a laugh. It's as easy as going to fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
That's really funny.
Call or text the show at 727-858-6650. Now, back to Q.
All right, 5 o'clock straight up, couple minutes past 5 o'clock hour on the East Coast. Do not forget, check out my YouTube channel, Rich Q on Q, and check out our sports pod as well, our gambling pod, Back Your Play, which you also hear on SR 1029 FM The Game. Rich Quinones here, Angel Martinez behind the glass, Dave on X Chimes in Q. Loving the show. Finally found you on the so-called dial. Today would be a perfect day to watch Houston, the Braves, get out. Honestly, I really hope the Mets lose. Sorry, Q, even though you're a Yankees fan. I want a winner-take-all game 3, and that will benefit the Phillies. Yeah, what do you guys call that? The Red October, you fighting Phils fans? Oh, my goodness. You know, jeez Louise. You guys, listen, you better hope the Phillies make a deep run, because as I said the other day, friggin' Philadelphia Eagles might be cooked. Does it not bother anyone? Does it not bother anyone if you are an Eagles fan? You got one of your captains, El Capitan, Darius Slay, doing a friggin' podcast with Micah Parsons, the rival of the Dallas Cowboys, NFC East. We hate each other. And I'm going to sit there and yuck it up that Gardner Johnson got toasted. My own teammate getting tossed around like a rag doll to Baker Mayfield and Tampa. You got to be kidding me with that nonsense. That's embarrassing. I mean, that would drive me up a friggin' wall. Let me get a gas pump guy with the text. Q, you know, Otani was betting. He just got off because he doesn't speak English or understand. And I'm not saying that is a bad thing. Appreciate you clarifying that. So all the people don't start hating on me, but it's just as crazy as like a double standard. So listen, nobody knows if Otani bet on baseball games. No, nobody knows. They don't. And I know everyone, listen, I came out and said where there's smoke, there's fire. My thing was, if you're missing $3, $4, $5 million from your bank account, you're not giving carte blanche to your buddy. right? You're not. You're not going to pull the so-so all of a sudden doesn't understand English, or Palmera waving his finger like, God rest his soul, Matumbo, right to Congress. I never took this. I never took that. Where there's smoke, there's fire in these situations. And I'll tell you, it would be devastating. It would be devastating to the sport of baseball if he got caught with his hand in a cookie jar. I mean, he is a generational talent. And Steve was adamant. That's why I asked him, listen, all the rumblings, would you stick him in? Well, if he's found guilty of placing bets, see, I think it's guilt by association, right? Perception. The optics look bad. That's just my opinion. The optics look bad. If I've got a translator, if I've got a friend and he's handling my money, he's handling my accounts, and all of a sudden millions of dollars are gone, and I got to answer to that. I mean, first of all, this guy was a piss poor gambler. I mean, pick up a new hobby. He was horrible. Horrible. But again, man, if you're stealing from your buddy, if you're robbing from your buddy and he doesn't know, that's one thing. But I don't know how you don't know, right? I mean, look, he's not fluent. He speaks passable English as well as Spanish, by the way. But he wants to speak to the media through an interpreter, which I understand. Nothing gets lost in the sauce. Nothing gets lost in translation. But when you're talking about $4.5 million, $4.5 million of wire payments from his bank account, a bookmaking operation under federal investigation, and then all of a sudden it comes out, well, that money was being paid to repay gambling debts, and then you got to answer to your translator. That's not good. That's really not good. And I already saw that Lionsgate Television, I think, announced the development of a script on this guy's gambling scandal, right? So everyone wants to cash in. Here's my problem with baseball, among many things. For years, even prior to Bart Giamatti passing away, once the Dowd report was made available and all the findings were there, Pete Rose he still didn't admit anything. In 2004, you're talking 15 years of denials. And then he came out and said, yes, I place bets on baseball. But he insisted it was only as a manager. But is that even worse? Like, is it worse to bet on games if you're a manager, or is it worse to bet on games as a player? Because as a manager, you influence a lot. I'm pulling this guy after 3. I'm moving this guy around. I'm going with a different lineup. I know this guy's been shelled. I know this guy's coming off 100 pitches. I'm throwing him in there on short rest. What is right? What is wrong? What is indifferent? And you got to go back. That Dowd report is absolutely, it's bananas. It's absolutely bananas. And Giamatti was only named president of the National League in 86. And his big thing was basically make him more fan friendly, right? But he turned around. He suspended Rose for 30 games for bumping the up in 88. He suspended Hal, right? He was tough when it came to the players union. And, once he succeeded, Uberoff, that was it. I mean, he came in, Bart Giamatti took office in baseball in April of 1989. You guys can look this up. April of 1989. He turns around in August. What is that? April, May, June, July. Oh, less than 6 months. He turns around and he says, you know what? We got to maintain the integrity of the game. Kind of like another commissioner, right? In the NFL. And that was it. Lifetime ban. And he took it to his grave. Lifetime ban. And my take for years was, and I'm telling you guys right now, I'm being fully transparent. I did a 180. For years, I would say on the air, there's no friggin' way you let Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame. I don't care about his numbers. It says right there, walking down the steps, in every dugout, in every locker room, in Major League Baseball, in every park, gambling is you cannot gamble. It's prohibited. Can't do it. And then I started to say to myself, once the Mitchell report came out and these guys really cheated, now you're really opening up a can of worms. You're really opening up a can of worms and you're saying to yourself, man, if these guys eventually are going to get in, then how do you not let Pete Rose get in? And I still maintain if Pete Rose would have just came clean, I don't think he would have had to suffer. Look, he wanted, he desperately wanted to get into Cooperstown. He desperately wanted to get in, but he was an addict and he was pawning stuff left and right. And it's unfortunate, man. I mean, no one's going to remember, you'll remember him breaking the hits record off of Eric Schau, but it's always going to follow with, again, the fact that he gambled on baseball. And there lies the rub. Joe D. Summers Point chiming in. Excellent topic of conversation, Q, but is it not the Hall of Fame? It's not the Hall of Character or the Hall of Morals. No, it's not. It's not. It is the Hall of Fame. All right, 5:12. Got to take a quick time out. We'll reset the table. We'll come back on the other side. A lot more Pete Rose coming up. Football talk as well. Keep it locked in on a Wednesday edition of The Drive with Q.
Eye on Tampa Bay is the latest news, weather, and traffic for Pinellas, Pasco, Ellsboro, Hernando, and surrounding communities. Stay connected on X, Facebook, and their website, iontp.com. Eye on Tampa Bay keeps you informed on breaking news as it happens. Southwest Florida's newest game in town. Sports Radio 102.9, the game powered by Eye on Tampa Bay. We'll be right back.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting. A teenager. Learning the lingo.
Today I'm going to help parents translate teen slang. Now, when a teen says something is on fleek, it's exactly like saying, that's rad. It simply means that something is awesome or cool. Another one is totes. It's exactly like saying, totally, just shorter. As in, I totes love going to the mall with Becca. Another word you might hear is jelly. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will think you're, rad just the same. To learn more, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
This is the story of a very special woman. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician or an entrepreneur. Her knowledge was limitless and still is. She could also make monsters disappear, especially those that lurked in the shadows under the bed. Once, this woman put back together a teenage girl's broken heart, which had been shattered in 1,000 pieces, just by giving her a bear hug. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Download the Sports Radio 102.9 FM The Game app and tell your friends that Florida has a new leader in digital sports radio.
5:16 on a Wednesday edition of The Drive with Q. Rich Quinones here. Angel Martinez behind the glass. A lot of baseball talk, and rightfully so, on this Wednesday. 727-858-6650. Jerry in Rhode Island. Kurt Schilling, borderline, but because of his politics, he's being snubbed. He has great postseason stats. That's a really good point you bring up. That's an excellent point you bring up. I mean, Kurt Schilling's a clown, but you look at his postseason numbers and his postseason stats, they're ridiculous. Right? If Kurt Schilling keeps his mouth shut and he doesn't sprout off his political beliefs, guess what? Kurt Schilling's already in Cooperstown. I mean, no bones about it, right? Well over 200 games. I mean, it's about the postseason. He was a dominant postseason pitcher. I mean, everyone, right? The bloody sock. He was a dominant postseason pitcher. I don't think Kurt Schilling ever won a Cy Young, though. I think he was second in voting a bunch of times, but he was a great pitcher. But to your point, and to other points, is it the Hall of Fame or the Hall of Morals or the Hall of Character, right? Nick in Central Jersey chimes in, Q, I'm digging the baseball talk. Thank you. You're giving me an outlet to listen to some MLB. Conversation with Steve Gardner was very interesting. Although I side with Steve, I understand your points. It's all about what Pete Rose did on the field, and you can't tell the story of baseball, as you said, quote, without Pete Rose enjoying the show. You can't. What's up, Angel? You can't do it.
No, listen, you brought up a hot topic there, obviously, when it comes to Pete Rose, but I'm the same way too. Like, why can't, so why, I mean, all right, so he's gone. It took him years to finally admit that he gambled. I just don't know why that they just sort of like, listen, fine, put him in, just put him in a Hall of Fame. I mean, I don't get it at this point because.
You mean why they did it?
No, why they should allow him to be in the Hall of Fame now.
Okay, let me ask you a question though. Why now? Because he died. And that's the problem I have. And you have to be sensitive to this, but you have to be accurate in this, or you have to be honest. It's not somebody sitting up there in suits in New York, right? In Cooperstown saying, well, yeah, now he passed, so let's do him a solid. What good that, I mean, if I'm his family, that's like spitting in my face. Look, he was addicted to gambling. He had an addiction and he fought it. And he did the cardinal sin. He bet on the games he was a part of. We don't know. We believe not as a player, but as a manager. And the one thing you can't do is bet on the games, right? You just can't. Now, in the 70s, the players were taking greenies and uppers. They're in the Hall of Fame. In the 80s, steroids. We can question who's going to get in and who's not. But to your point, if I'm baseball, if I'm Pete Rose's family, I mean, it's almost like it's adding salt to the wound right now. If they turn around and say, yeah, we're going to vote him in. Because the shadow is already cast, right? The cloud is already over his legacy. It's already over his legacy. You can say Charlie Hustle, career hits, World Series, MVP, all this stuff. The first thing people look at or will remember when they Google Pete Rose, it's going to be gambling. That's it. And that's the problem now. So you're saying, yeah, just stick him in. I agree, but I agree he should have been in years ago.
Right.
But you just have, and I don't want to say, I mean, look, I think Steve Gardner is a great baseball guy. He's extremely, extremely insightful. And I rarely disagree. Well, I've disagreed with him a lot, but in this stance, I vehemently disagree with him. All the Hall of Fame voters could have antique plaques put on their forehead. I mean, listen, I'll say this, Jerry. I know a bunch of writers, and they're not bad. They're not bad. You know, they're not bad at all. And they try to do the right thing, and they try to be honest, and they try to be transparent. But I also believe there are some of them that are a little more stuck in their ways, that are a little more old school, and they vote because, or not to vote because they have an agenda and they have a narrative. Steve's not one of those guys. He's the type of guy, and I've known him for years. He votes on what he believes in. I mean, he hasn't changed his stance. I have 180 because when I really took a step back, eventually, listen, Bonds is going to get in. Clemens is going to get in. Rodriguez is going to get in. And it's the same premise that Steve mentioned. You'll have a wing, but an asterisk. Like, to me, like, what good is me being in a hall of something with a friggin' asterisk? Or in the corner where the men's room is, like a different wing. That does nothing to me. That's not my legacy. I don't want to leave that to my family. That's not my lasting legacy. Oh, you know, boom, 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 Rich Quinones, blah, 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 asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. That means nothing. Then don't even stick me in. That's my argument. If you're going to do it, put him in. Tell the tale. Tell the tale. Tell the tale. Go ahead. Talk about the gambling. but also talk about the hits, the MVPs, the World Series, the Charlie Hustle, what he meant to the game, his passion and love for the game. Tell the whole story on the plaque. I don't care, but don't be the asterisk. Don't put him in, put baby in the corner. That's where I have a problem with. And there are a lot of guys that just had hard-ons for Pete Rose, these voters. They had their own agenda, man, and they're not going to vote him in. They're not. And it's unfortunate. But to also be fair, he made his, again, rest in peace, made his bed, and it was his decision to bet. It was right?
Yep, it was. But if so on the flip side, and I know obviously
go ahead.
It's neither here nor there anymore, but if he would admit, let's just say from the very beginning, he would have admitted it, would anything have changed?
No, the thing is, you have a chance to redeem yourself.
Okay.
We all make mistakes. We all screw up. We all do something we're embarrassed of. We might have demons in the closet. We might have issues. We might be dealing with addictions. And the first thing to do is admit it. That's the toughest thing to do. You got to look yourself in the mirror and be a man and say, yeah, man, I'm addicted to this. I'm addicted to alcohol. I'm addicted to gambling. I'm addicted to sex. I'm addicted to porn. I'm addicted to whatever, fast food, whatever. Like, you have to admit it. He continuously lied to himself. And that was the battle within. That's the battle that he was not going to win. Imagine every day you're waking up and you're lying to yourself constantly. And every time you're pressed, no. I'm all for standing atop the mountain. And if you have a belief and convictions, scream it out loud. Go ahead, man. Die with your boots on. But when you just lie, or someone that's telling a tale and they lie, or they're a chronic liar, man, you lie enough times to yourself, you start to friggin' believe the lie. And that's what Pete Rose is playing the martyr. He was playing the victim. It's exactly what he was doing. I'm not trying to get all psychological or philosophical and all that BS. I'm just telling you how it is. So what changes is show remorse. I broke the rule. I should be punished. I'm sorry. I have a problem. But he kept going to trade shows and card shows and pushing product and pawning off. Why? To support these habits. Because it's not like in 1989 after he got caught, or in the 90s with the Dowd Report, or when he's on Dateline, or in the mid-1990s, do you still gamble? No, I don't. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. And now the problem now, what I have a problem with is that it's glorified. Oh man, Charles Barkley making fun of how much money he's lost, $20 million. Michael Jordan was going down to Atlantic City and gambling in Atlantic City during playoff games. And the whole thing, with Michael Jordan, there's this whole conspiracy theory, which is debunked. And I hate when people even bring it up because it's just ludicrous and it's sick that his father was murdered to pay off his gambling debt. There's no evidence to support that whatsoever. But I think what happened was they were going to come out with certain reports and findings with his gambling. And that's when they basically said, wink, wink, why don't you take a year or two off? But Michael Jordan, last time I checked, is he not in the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame?
Yepers.
It is so, the contradiction is absurd. So we're killing Pete Rose because he gambled. And he was told not to gamble, right? Black Sox, shoeless Joe Jackson. I mean, Christ, they friggin' rigged a World Series, right? A World Series. You ever see the movie 8 Men Out? Great movie. Fantastic movie. You really don't know who was responsible, who bet, who didn't. I don't care what anyone tells me. And I love that movie, and I've seen history docs, and I've read books on the Black Sox and the scandal in 1990 and throwing the friggin' World Series and everyone. Jackson was banned. He was banned. I mean, but think about this. If you go back, that year, he led both leagues in stats all over the place. He set World Series records with like 13, 14, 15 base hits. But yet they were figuring out who's throwing these games. Joe Jackson should be in the Hall of Fame, right? I mean, think about it. Put the plaque, stick him in. Okay, asterisk, whatever. But everyone will look at that scandal. They will. I mean, listen, was Babe Ruth a nice guy? Was Ty Cobb a nice guy? I mean, Babe Ruth was sleeping with everyone, fraternizing, drinking. All. Babe Ruth's in the Hall of Fame. Ty Cobb, everyone knows Ty Cobb. They're like, I think he's a racist. Well, last time I checked, Ty Cobb in the Hall of Fame. I just think, it almost saddens me that Pete Rose will not have his day in the sun. And it's self-inflicted wounds, man. But it's like, how much, and I'm not trying to be funny here, but how much are you going to bury a guy? Like when all he wanted, he desperately wanted to sit up there and have his bust and have his plaque and have his day in the sun and his speech. He's not going to get it. And I'm torn, Angel, because in one breath, I understand why he's not going to get it. But in the other breath, I really believe in my heart of hearts, if he would have just been contrite, and he would have tried to flip the script, I think he would have had a better leg to stand on, a stronger case to say, this is what I've done. And I'm sorry, I've disgraced myself and the game. And now you got 20 something odd years to just make amends. I mean, you remember years ago when the Yankees were in the World Series, I want to say it was against San Diego. I think it was the 1998 Yankees team. And they just absolutely, they won 114 games. They just, they swept San Diego. Jim Gray was doing an interview with Shane Spencer. And I'll double check because I know you guys fact check me and that's fine. It might have been 1999 and I'm okay with that. And they asked him, Jim Gray was notoriously, he was, when I say Pete Rose, man, if you go back to that interview, it was the 1999 All-Century team. That's what it was. And he went at Pete Rose pretty bad, and the players took umbrage to that, and the players refused to do an interview with Jim Gray. And that kind of showed you the standing that Pete Rose had back then in baseball with the current players. And that was 1999. So now we're talking 24 years ago. Like, let it go already. Like, like I said, man, I'm torn. Because in one breath, guy had a disease, but how do you not talk baseball? You're growing up playing t-ball. You're playing catch with your dad. You're playing on the street with your friends on the blacktop, in the parking lot, with, in the backyard with the chair and the plastic bat, a little wiffle ball. Everyone hustle it out. That's Charlie Hustle, man. That's baseball. So you're going to tell the story of baseball and the career hits leaders, and you're not going to mention Pete Rose? It's just, I don't know. I get it. It doesn't necessarily mean it sits right with me, if that makes sense. I don't want to come off like I'm, talking, out of Mike in Ohio chiming in. Q, it does sound like you're talking out of both sides of your mouth, but I appreciate the passion. Yeah, I don't know. I'm very indifferent with him, man. I really am. And like I said, if he just would have just been, and then remember too, what happened in 2017. You had a woman came out and had that affidavit that she had a relationship with Rose in the 70s, and she was 16, which I believe was the age of consent in Ohio. P. Rose was 34 and married at the time. Listen, he, again, it is a final. How about this? Wow. Get out, friggin' beating the drums. There you go. Boom, boom, boom. So the Tigers move on to the ALDS. Wow. How many people did you guys hit the Tigers? 86 wins. The Astros starting to come on. Hell, would Seattle have given the Tigers a better run for the money. I mean, this is a team that was 6.5 back at Cleveland in the Central. I mean, if you haven't followed them, they got a couple good players, man. And Riley Green, the left fielder, is one of them. So how about that? Is that a final? Because I still see live right here. It is a final. All right.
Yeah.
All right. I don't want to refresh and all of a sudden it's 6-5 Houston.
No, it's right. I was watching the play-by-play. Detroit actually at the top of the ninth had left 2 on. They're almost putting up a rally there. But the bottom of the second, you had Victor called out on strikes, and then Jeremy Pena was flies out sharply to center field, and then after that was Mauricio Dubon grounds out for the second baseman Cole Keith to end the series.
There you go. Detroit wins it. Wow. Yeah, my buddy's going to be pissed. My buddy is a diehard Astros fan. You know, now if the Yankees don't get to the ALCS, if they don't get to the friggin' World Series, it's an absolute joke. John in PA chiming in Q, will you stop friggin' killing the Eagles every effing day? I listen to you on the air. Who the hell cares that Darius Slade was on a pod with Micah Parkins? The only person is you. Really? First of all, it's Parsons, not Parkins. That's number one. Let me address Gas Pump Guy. So if he would have never admitted it, do you think they would have forgot about it or let him into the Hall of Fame eventually? He didn't have to admit it. The report and findings, the Dowd report, was a smoking gun. I mean, it's, right? What do we always look for? Where's the body?
Yep.
You watch all those shows, right? CSI, NCIS, whatever. Miami Vice, You still watch Miami Vice? I do. I watch it on free TV. Yeah, why not? Show me the body. Show me the body. Where's the body?
If it's still on, I watch it.
Yeah, you can't pinch me for murder, man. Where's the body?
By the way, I sent you the text from Trash Talking Patty.
No, let me get to it. Oh, is it the steroids?
Yep.
All right, Trash Talking TV. Steroids. How do players with drug enhancement while playing the game get in, but not Rose? If he gambled on his own teams he managed, what's the stats on those seasons? Did the team suck? Did they have winning seasons? I'm curious if any of there's proof his gambling affected the outcomes. The punishment did not fit the crime, in my opinion. Patty Trash Talk. That's fantastic. That is a exceptional comment and thought, because we'd have to go back and really look at those teams. Now, remember too, the Reds were a bad team in, 89? But what happened in 1990? The Reds friggin' won the World Series. That's funny when you think about it. So Pete Rose managed the Reds. How many years did he manage? I think 85?
I think so.
85. Yeah, 85 he managed them. They didn't make the playoffs. 86, 87, 88, 89. Then again, obviously everything happened with, the gambling and the suspension. And then Lou Piniella manages the Nasty Boys in 90, and they lost Eric Davis for that World Series, but they absolutely just annihilated the Oakland Athletics. I mean, they put an end to their dynasty. I mean, they beat them the first game. I think they beat them 8-0. They scored 8 or 9 in the third game, and then they won a very close game, Jose Rio, on the mound in game 4, and they swept them. So I'd have to go back and really look, but the whole crux is that he bet on these games when he was a manager. And no matter what, again, you'll figure out if or how those games were affected. What do we got here? We want some commentary? 5-2? Oh, we're not going to. I thought I was going to get a highlight. We got a still shot right now.
No, you're getting a highlight.
Fire away. Go ahead.
It's been an incredible
Major
run.
League Baseball prevails me from giving you the play-by-play. Inside, and chopper, over to second. Now the short's going to fire. There it is.
The Motown magic continues.
Oh, I got to listen to
the Tigers sweep the Astros 5-2, and they will move to the American League Division Series.
There you go.
Todd, I am so impressed.
Get out of here. And
they
even put Verlander on the roster.
Bullpen, lineup, camaraderie, amazing.
Tim Kirkchin. That's not Ronnie Darling. Yeah, that's a nice little triumph there for Detroit. I'll tell you who's in trouble right now.
Who's that?
Baltimore. Baltimore is losing 1-0. Yeah, but if Baltimore gets bounced, they won 91 games this year. And they actually came on late, but then they had a stretch where they were playing probably the worst baseball besides the Chicago White Sox.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, the Phillies will be in action. Game 1 of the NLDS will be 4:05 first pitch Saturday.
Yep.
And obviously the Phillies will get the winner of the Braves and the Mets. Another great show. Have to go. Don't want to miss anything. Jerry, that's why you can get us on demand on Rich Q on Q, my friend, but I appreciate that. 5:35, maybe everyone's got to have dinner time. That's why you got to download the app.
That's right.
72785 Tom in Summers Point chiming in. Q, always enjoy the baseball talk. You always get heated and passionate. I'm not going to sit there and say you sound like the old man on the porch, but you did mention what was going on in the 70s. You can't discount what was going on in the 80s and the 90s. And to your point, eventually those steroid players are going to get in. If they get in, Pete Rose needs to get in. Apples and oranges.
Yeah. Although I'm surprised with the Astros, there was no sticky stuff, the long walk to first before you go down to the mound and then over to the clubhouse.
Hey, give them credit, man, because they had their run going into the ALCS. It's almost like Kansas City-ish in what they're doing in the NFL. And I do want to get into a little football too. On the other side. So we'll do that. We'll take our last time out. We'll take you up to 6 o'clock straight up. Keep them coming. 727-858-6650. Don't forget to download the app. Call in or text 727-858-6650. SR1029thegame.com. That's where you can check us out. A lot of eyeballs. You guys have been fantastic. Let's finish strong. NFL, the Adams trade talk, Thursday night football, a little sneak peek at week 5 NFL lines coming up on the other side.
Ion Tampa Bay is the latest news, weather, and traffic for Pinellas, Pasco, Ellsboro, Hernando, and surrounding communities. Stay connected on X, Facebook, and their website, iontp.com. Ion Tampa Bay keeps you informed on breaking news as it happens. Southwest Florida's newest game in town. Sports Radio 102.9, the game powered by Ion Tampa Bay. We'll be right back.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting. A teenager. Learning the lingo.
Today I'm going to help parents translate teen slang. Now, when a teen says something is on fleek, it's exactly like saying, that's rad. It simply means that something is awesome or cool. Another one is totes. It's exactly like saying, totally, just shorter. As in, I totes love going to the mall with Becca. Another word you might hear is jelly. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will think you're, rad just the same. To learn more, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
This is the story of a very special woman. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician or an entrepreneur. Her knowledge was limitless and still is. She could also make monsters disappear, especially those that lurked in the shadows under the bed. Once, this woman put back together a teenage girl's broken heart, which had been shattered in 1,000 pieces. Just by giving her a bear hug. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Don't forget to get social with us. Follow Q at Rich Q on Q. And now, back to Q.
Being Camden chiming in on XQ. Did that guy really say Micah Parkins? I mean, the last time I checked, it was Parsons, but whatever. I mean, if you're going to criticize me, at least get the player right? Isn't that fair? Stop complaining about, Deonis Slay. Not Deonis? All right, whatever. Giannis, I used to love that. Look, I get it. I butcher names. It's part of who I am, but I'll never forget when guys on the radio would like crush me and they would be like, you don't even know what the hell you're talking about. I can't believe you're sitting there talking about Antetokounmpo. I'm like, Giannis, if you're going to make sense, if you're going to talk about Shonan Otani, then you better do your research. Oh, Shonan? All right. Yeah, sure. Whatever. By the way, our top 10, our power rankings portion of the show from BYP. Don't forget, fresh roasted coffee. If you guys love your coffee, I only had about 5 cups today. Don't forget, the link is in the YouTube channel, the affiliate link to fresh roasted coffee, BYP20. Save 20% off. All right, let me give you the top 10. So I actually have Washington 3-1. They're my top 10 squad. They've scored 22 possessions. I don't even think they had 2 games where they didn't punt. Daniels is not turning over the football. He's played absolutely dominant as a rookie, so I got them as number 10. I'm going to push. And by the way, Philadelphia Eagles out of the top 10, mind you. Even though Seattle lost the other night, I still have them. I'm going to say 10A, 10B with Washington because I had to push 2 teams, and I didn't want to do Tampa, and I certainly didn't want to do Baltimore. I was contemplating having the Houston Texans. I can't really get excited about what they just did. They're 3-1. Stroud's been remarkable, but I have them right now at, let's just say, number 9. Tampa comes in at number 8. Baltimore is number 7. San Francisco comes in at number 6. And believe it or not, I still have Green Bay coming in at number 5 because you get back Love. I know they're 2-2. I know he turned the ball over. They're going to put up a lot of points. Detroit comes in at number 4. Jared Goff pitching that perfect game the other night. Shame he didn't get the friggin' game ball. By the way, we gave you that game. That closed us out 4-1 on the weekend. So for all the go back to the drawing board, Q. Shut up. 4-1, silence. Go away. We put some coin in your pocket. We told you the over, and we said Detroit laying 4.5. You guys could have went to friggin' bed and counted cheap at the half and woke up with a little coin in your back pocket near your tushy. So you got the Lions right there as we helped you put a little coin there. Buffalo is number 3. Now, this is going to shock you. Kansas City is number 2. And I'm telling you right now, man, if they don't get a wide receiver, they're in trouble. And their defense has been a little spotty. They've been slow out of the gate offensively, so they're my number 2 squad. Number 1 in my Q's power rankings for this week, I got to do it. Slinging Sammy Darnold and the Minnesota Vikings. Right now, he's not only comeback player of the year, he's not only offensive MVP, he's definitely the MVP of the league. Now, the fourth quarter, they got to clean up a couple things, right? You got to play 60 minutes, but you could not have asked for a better start to the season. That quarterback's playing with a ton of confidence. I had to bump the Eagles out. I'm sorry. And I technically bumped Seattle out, and I pushed down Green Bay and Washington. As far as the bottom feeders, I think we kind of know. I mean, you're talking about the 5 worst teams in the NFL. Sorry, Pats fans. I know Jacksonville is bad. How the hell did they beat Cincinnati in week 1? Carolina's bad. Miami is bad. Miami is really bad with no Tua. The Giants friggin' suck. I mean, can you run a wide receiver into the ground? Yeah, that's exactly what they're doing with Neighbors, who's in concussion protocol. So I've got 32 New England, 31 Carolina, 30 Miami, 29 the Giants. Even though Jacksonville's 0-4, I'll stick them at 28. I know you're probably thinking, well, wait a second. They're winless. They should be the worst team. It's not going to... I believe Doug Peterson will get fired. Okay. And again, when you say ask the coaches, or as coaches, we can't make the plays, right? You've got an owner that has a reputation of not being as tuned into his team as other owners. So I think you give him those 2 games in London. If they go out and embarrass themselves, then you're going to have to make a change. And I listen, if you want to put Jacksonville at 32 or 31, I don't care. But those are your bottom dwellers. Tennessee's right there. Cleveland's right there. This is the parity in the NFL. Cleveland, everyone said playoff team. Rams, playoff team. Arizona, playoff team. They're all 1-3. They're all, you don't give honorable mention about the Bucks. They're doing pretty damn good. There is no honorable mention. They are. They're playing really well. I think Baker Mayfield has found a home with Tampa Bay. I do. I think he's found a home with Tampa Bay. I don't think every game is going to be that easy. Listen, they're 1.5 point dogs on the road against Atlanta, which is a tough place to play in. I pulled up Tampa Bay's schedule. They've got Atlanta and the Saints. Those are very important games. Why? Because obviously they're divisional matchups. You can afford to lose against the Ravens because that's a different conference. But then you've got Atlanta again, the Chiefs, and the 49ers. So point being, they got out of that fast start, which they needed. But let's just say, argument's sake, Falcons, Saints, Ravens, Falcons, Chiefs, 49ers, 6 games. By the time they get to the Giants in late November, you're going to see where this team's at. Are they going to be 6-2 or are they going to be 4-4? I mean, that's a tough stretch of games. And that's where you're going to see what you have in Baker Mayfield. Look, he played exceptionally well the other day. He played exceptionally well last week, no doubt. But I go quarters, right? 4, 4, 4. Now all of a sudden we're in week 5. That game against Atlanta and that game against New Orleans, those are both on the road. It's very hard to win in the NFL on the road. It is. And I think they're going to have to match point for point. I said this yesterday, Monday show. I said, what does Seattle need to do to win the game? They're going to have to score at least 28 to 30 points. Sometimes in the NFL, man, you do not want to get in a shootout. Sometimes you're forced to score. And we saw Tampa Bay can move the football. They're a good team. They are a good team. I mean, I listen, right now they look like a playoff team, but you got a lot of football left. I don't see a ton of holes. I put up the stats. I know a couple of you guys were asking me. So this is what I counted the other day when we talk about the tackling in the NFL. So just bear with me. Just 2 updates. Obviously, Rashee Rice, they believe it's a ligament tear. Malik Neighbors, you're looking at average 8 days, right? So with the concussion, the Giants, they go to Seattle. And then I think they come back. They got that Monday night game against Cincinnati. I have to double check. But the Eagles, where did I pull that stat? All right. So Vic Fangio said the Eagles counted 15 missed tackles. It's fundamentals, folks. That's fundamentals. You got to nip that in the bud, and you got to take care of that in practice. And how many of those missed tackles, too, were the second line of defense? I'm not even talking about when the running back gets right through the linebacker. I'm going through a DB. I'm going through a safety, a free safety, trying to play in the box. They better clean it up. They better clean it up. And I still also, you need to find this identity. They don't have it yet. They don't. And there are other teams in the NFL searching for their identity. Taking a quick look, and you get the bye, so you get some time to regroup. Week 4 lines, we'll do more on Friday's edition of The Drive, but just a couple that stand out already. That London game, the Jets on the road, Minnesota's laying 2.5. I already gave you Thursday Night Football. So obviously, if you back me in the corner right now, I do like Atlanta at home, but I also think it's going to be a high-scoring affair. I think defensively, Atlanta might be able to slow down Evans and Baker just a little bit, but I do like this game to be a 27-24 type of game. Ravens and Cincinnati. The Baltimore Ravens can pretty much end Cincinnati's season with a win and get them to 1-4 in the AFC North. Miami and New England. Miami basically is playing for their season. I don't care who the hell's quarterbacking. They should be underdogs. Remember I told you guys, find a week for me. Find a game that the Patriots are going to be favored. Guess what? I found it. I found the game. Pats laying 1 against Miami. Washington laying 3 against Cleveland. Cleveland is just itching to bench watching to go to Jameis Winston. I think that game is going to actually trickle down to about 2.5. Colts and Jacksonville doesn't. Bills and the Texans. That might be a really nice 1 o'clock CBS game. Buffalo right now, they got waxed. Houston responded. Look for the over on that one to be a shade over 47.5. Giants in Seattle. Wow. One of the largest lines of the weekend. 49ers at home against Arizona, 7. And Seattle laying 6.5 at home against my Giants. And if no neighbors, no good, no bueno. Kansas City Monday Night Football, 5.5 over the Saints as well. So a little sneak peek at week 5 lines as well from our good friends, our BYP portion of the show, fresh roasted coffee. And yes, we know that the Astros have been eliminated, but we appreciate you guys letting us know. Secondly, yeah, I mean, they had a great run. Listen, they had such a great run, it forced Seattle to fire their manager. I mean, that's been a hell of a run for the Houston Astros over the year. I didn't want to see the Astros. No. I didn't want to see them at all. The Yankees now, if the Yankees get Kansas City, they should win that series. But I think the Yankees against Cleveland is a tougher matchup for the Yankees. Guardians have decent pitching. They have decent pitching. And I would not, Detroit's going to be tested, man. The other thing is Cleveland, they've got some big bats. Naylor had 31 home runs. Jose Ramirez, first baseman Jose Ramirez. No, third baseman Jose Ramirez. He put up a big time season. Kiki, stop that. She knows. We know. It's almost dinner time. We know. We got a couple more minutes to play with. So, yeah, they got some bats. They definitely have some bats. So that'll be an interesting series. If the Yankees don't get to the pen, if the Yankees don't make it to the World Series, I will be pissed off. Then fold up shop. Fold up the franchise. Especially the year that Aaron Judge had. I mean, you're talking about historic year, man. And the last thing I need is for this team's bat to go silent. That's the same thing that was the bugaboo last year for the Phillies. I mean, look at that lineup, top to bottom, 1-9. And then it's feast or famine. You go against a team that can hit better. You go up against a team that's coming in red hot with their starting rotation. That's exactly what Arizona did. So the expectation right now, I think it's going to be collision course. Here we go. Phillies and the Dodgers in the NLCS. And I think it's going to look like the Guardians and the Yankees in the ALCS. And man, you get the Phillies and the Yankees in the World Series. Ooh, mama.
Yeah, but do I want to go back down to 2009 road again? That was brutal after coming off the World Series. But also, let me go back to that conversation when I was working at Citizens Bank Park, where a lot of people were saying that the Phillies had checked out once they got to the World Series because some of those guys want to go play golfing. But it just drives me bananas. The folks that were coming into Citizens Bank Park, there was one lady in particular. You know when New York came out with Jay-Z and who's my other girl here?
Beyonce?
No. Oh, my God.
Alicia Keys?
There you go. So when they came out, this lady comes in through out from center field, and she walks in a ballpark and says, why are they playing this in Philadelphia? Do they not know it's a New York song? Look, they're lazy. You do realize that is outside of New York as well. They played that everywhere.
Yeah.
And that wasn't, being an ass or anything else like that to her. But I told her, I said, listen, who knows? That's probably going to be your celebration song. And don't you know that night, even though the Phillies won, unfortunately, they lost going back to New York.
You know who was locked in that World Series? One Alexander Emmanuel Rodriguez. Every time he stepped to the plate, I mean, he absolutely demolished.
Yeah, whatever.
Oh my goodness. He was so friggin' locked in. It was just on another level of being locked in.
Yeah. No, he was locked in, all right, because then when the World Series ended up winning it, then a clown all of a sudden forgets how to speak English. Oh my, Dios mío.
Oh, hold on a second. No.
Bring back the tape.
No. Tú eres mendiosa. No, you are. Yes, you are.
No.
Yes, you are.
Father, I'm telling you, I will find it when I'm on with Jay, and then I'll send it to you.
No, you're blocked. You're done. No, I'm not going to deal with that kind of nonsense. Talking about doesn't speak English. Stop with that nonsense.
Okay.
I know we got mendioso. I know we got to start wrapping it up. Hey, do me a favor, as you guys always do, please. Download the app. Check out 1029 FM, the game. We have all the content, all the shows. This one is just getting off. She's giving me that look. She knows. She knows. I mean, what they do is they just the funny noises, right? Because she knows it's time. I'm gonna feed her. Keep it locked in. Coming up. The first episode of Believe's World. Jay did a fantastic job. He's coming up at 6 to 8 tonight. So again, do not go anywhere. Incredible engagement and eyeballs again on X, on YouTube, Facebook. You guys are always just fantastic with the comments, always keeping me engaged and on my toes. And I certainly appreciate that. All right. Just before we get out of here, real quick, we already told you. Obviously, the Tigers move on to the ALDS. Royals up on top of the O's right now, 1-0. You got the Mets and the Brewers game 2 tonight. The Metis can close it out. And the Braves and the Padres. And the Padres, who have really put together a very nice season leading that series, 1-0. It'll be Fried and Musgrave. That line right now, Atlanta's even. San Diego's minus 120. The Mets are minus 105. I had a little confidence the Mets to lay 105 to win back that 100. So I'm okay with that as well. All right, Football Friday. Lloyd Vance is going to join us. We're going to see if we can get in Jonathan Marshall and a little NBA. Jaman Alford will do Q's picks. We'll see if we can track down our guy, Brandon Jacobs, as well. Excellent stuff from you guys keeping us locked in. Don't forget, we'll carry over. You got Jay's show coming up. So again, 727-586-6650. Keep it locked in for him. He did an outstanding job with his first show. He'll take you up to 8 o'clock straight up. We will talk to you on Friday on What the Frig, Football Friday edition of The Drive for Angel Martinez. I'm Rich Quinones. As always, be safe, be sound. Have a good Sports Wednesday. Hasta luego, buen día.